What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the February 7th, 2022 edition of Raw Talk. We kicked off the show with Matt Camp and Jackie Redmond in the studio, running down the biggest headlines from Monday's Raw, including recapping the AJ Styles-Damian Priest Championship Contenders match that was won by AJ, earning him a United States Championship opportunity next week on Raw. They kind of emphasized that AJ has been quietly building momentum lately, which is true. He beat Priest, obviously, this week. He beat Rey Mysterio to qualify for the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber next weekend. And then I think on the go-home Raw, right before the Rumble, he beat Austin Theory in a great match. So, aside from that quick, decisive, embarrassing loss to Omos, who we've barely seen in recent weeks, AJ's been picking up a lot of momentum in 2022, which is good to see. Obviously, he also beat Grayson Waller in NXT a couple of weeks before that as well. We hear backstage from AJ with Sarah Schreiber. He says that he can beat a champion. He proved on Raw he can beat a champion in Damian Priest, even if it is non-title action. And that also means he knows he can beat Bobby Lashley come Elimination Chamber. Now, granted, it's not a one-on-one match, and he's never beaten Bobby Lashley one-on-one. They've never even had a one-on-one match, to my recollection. But he thinks that if he can beat Priest, he's had a lot, he's never won an Elimination Chamber match, but he's been in there before. And I think the only two times, Styles has been in Elimination Chamber matches, he was in there till the very end. He was in there till the end with Wyatt in 2017, and he was in there till the end, and maybe not in 2019. I think he got eliminated third or second or whatever, I don't remember. But last year he was in there till the end with Drew McIntyre. So he's been in 3, he's done fairly well. Elimination Chamber this year, hoping to not only do well, but come out on top in the whole thing, obviously. Come out on top in the whole thing and become WWE Champion. He doesn't know what he can do differently this time compared to other times he's been in the chamber, because you never know when you're going to be coming out. You don't know that until your pod lifts or you're just in the ring when the match starts or whatever. Can't really plan ahead. We hear from JBL, who was this week's special guest here on Raw Talk. He says that AJ Styles is this generation's Shawn Michaels and is a star, which I agree with. He also calls Damian Priest a future cornerstone on this brand, but AJ has to be able to beat Priest next week to win that championship when they go one-on-one, like I said, for that United States Championship. They talk a little bit about Elimination Chamber. JBL recalls standing across the ring in the chamber from Umaga. That was the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber #1 contenders match back in 08 and No Way Out. JBL did not win that. I think that was the only Elimination Chamber match he was in. I don't think he was in it in 09. I don't think he was in it at any other point prior to that either. But yeah, he was in that match. He faced Umaga. He talked a little bit about that. So love the Umaga shout out here on the show. But he sees, Styles as being a setup of sorts for Priest. Priest has got to be able to prove that he can beat a guy like AJ Styles as United States Champion on the road to WrestleMania to further cementing his legacy as the top star on the Raw brand. It's a huge test for him, JBL says. As far as the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match goes, JBL says he's liking Bobby Lashley. He's liking Bobby Lashley's chances in the chamber. He knows Bobby Lashley like no one else. Maybe not like no one else, but he's got history with Bobby Lashley, with Bobby having beaten JBL years ago for the United States Championship. But not only that, there's just a lot of luck involved with the chamber. People don't know when they're coming out. We don't know when they're coming out. So it really is all a matter of if you come out first, last, in the middle. There's a lot of luck that goes into it, kind of like the Royal Rumble in a way. So we'll see come Elimination Chamber next weekend. They then replay the Doudrop versus Liv Morgan match that was won by Doudrop. Very good match on Raw this week. They kind of talk about Doudrop becoming more of a threat in the Raw Women's division. Surely, slowly, quietly, but definitely surely, she's becoming a threat in that division, which is great. They also recap Bianca Belair beating Nikki Ash one-on-one, and a big win for Bianca as she kind of heads into WrestleMania and wanted to become the #1 contender to the Raw Women's Championship again. We hear from Bianca backstage, and before we even hear from her with Sarah Schreiber, not the commentators, but Matt Camp and Jackie bring up how Bianca wants revenge for what happened at SummerSlam last year and avenging that loss to Becky Lynch and getting back not the SmackDown Women's Championship, but getting back a championship, period. And she would be able to do that if she wins Elimination Chamber and beats Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. So Bianca says backstage that her confidence is at an all-time high. And she was on a roll last year going into WrestleMania. She won at the Royal Rumble. She earned the championship shot. And she's about to run it back again this year at Elimination Chamber and earn that championship opportunity again a different way. And you also can't spell WrestleMania, she says, without EST, which is true. Maybe, I was going to say not in that order, but it is. EST is in the word wrestle, so she's right. Matt Camp says that Rhea Ripley is probably the biggest threat to Bianca, and I would agree, of everyone in that match. We don't know the sixth woman. We don't know who else is going to be in it. They're probably going to announce the mystery opponent, or the mystery sixth woman at the event itself. Probably going to be Asuka, I would have to imagine. But yeah, he brings up how Ripley and Bianca have history. They were the last two in the Rumble last year, so she's on a roll as well. She's going to want that momentum too. They talk about the Lita-Becky Lynch match and how this Lita match for Becky Lynch at Elimination Chamber for the Raw Women's Championship means more to Becky the person than it does to Becky the competitor. Knowing the history between the two, how far they go back, and how Becky idolized Lita growing up in her career. And they recap the interaction from Raw where Lita left her laying with a twist of fate. We hear backstage from Lita with Sarah Schreiber, and Lita brings up how, Sarah asks her, would you have ever imagined being back in the ring at this stage of your career? And she said, absolutely not. I'm not a planner. I thought my career was basically over. I would come back once a year to do like the pre-show panel stuff or WrestleMania or blah, 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 the Rumble. But no, I'm back here for a full-on run, or so it seems. And she never really planned for this opportunity. That being said, though, she feels pretty good, she says, going into Elimination Chamber. And Becky brought it on Raw, but both will give it their all come the pay-per-view. Back in the studio, Jackie and Matt bring up how Becky's got to be able to beat her to prove that she is the GOAT, that she says that she is. JBL says all the pressure is on Becky Lynch, and she's letting Lita live rent-free in her head right now. He doesn't think Becky's going to get overwhelmed, I guess, in the matchup. He also brings up how she's got to finish it as dominantly as possible and go out there and win it as quick as possible to put Lita away, a WWE Hall of Famer, if you really want to secure that victory. And then to close out the show here, they promoted Brock Lesnar for next week's Raw as well. The return of the Beast on Monday nights. So a pretty decent show here, a pretty decent edition of Raw Talk. I had to speed through my notes here. I got to get going in a minute. But, we got to hear from Lita, Bianca, AJ, all top names, all had good little interviews. Jackie wasn't great. Some of the cringy stuff at the end there with JBL, their interaction was a bit, like I said, cringy. JBL offered some, interesting analysis, though. Like I said before, he's probably one of the more tolerable rotating people they have here on the show. Of him, Peter Rosenberg, Jerry Lawler, and Booker T. So I don't mind his analysis. It's all right. And he was pretty decent on this show. Thank you guys for checking out my review of Raw Talk. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode of #AskGSM. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your week. Check out my interview from yesterday with Bobby Lashley, the WWE Champion. If you haven't already, I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.